I'm Rabbi Howard Zack, Orthodox Rabbi, Jewish religion. This is our synagogue, Congregation Torah Emet. If you were to open up the Bible from the very beginning, we know that there were 10 generations from Adam and Eve to Noah, and 10 generations from Noah to Abraham. In the course of those 20 generations, man went from knowing God directly to ascribing intermediaries such as the moon and the sun as intermediaries to God, ultimately to establishing physical idols as representations of God, which led the world into idolatry, polytheism as the primary religion. Abraham was the one that kind of returned to a monotheistic belief in God by realizing that just as a house implies an architect, the world also applies an architect or prime mover. And so Abraham became really the father of monotheism, the father of Judaism. He, of course, had Isaac and grandson Jacob. From Jacob came the 12 tribes of Israel. Ultimately, the family of about 70, a clan, ended up enslaved to the story of Joseph in Egypt. And it wasn't until Moses returned to Egypt and at God's guidance, guided the Jewish people out of slavery to freedom from Pharaoh, the 10 plagues, the splitting of the Red Sea, ultimately a journey of 40 years to the land of Israel. Along the way, between Egypt and Israel, at Mount Sinai, God revealed himself to the entire Jewish nation. Before them, he gave Moses the 10 Commandments, and ultimately all of the laws, the written laws of the 5 books of Moses, what we call the Pentateuch, our first part of the Bible. And then ultimately, there was the oral traditions that were given by God to Moses and then added to by the rabbis and sages, ultimately leading to the redaction of the Talmud, which was the source of Jewish legal law, and ultimately down to the tradition through the rabbis into the hands of the rabbis of today. And so we have our religion as codified from Moses to today. So the major tenets of Judaism really have to do in 3 areas. Belief in God as the prime mover, and that he was the lawgiver that gave directly to Moses the law through the rest of the prophets, all of the laws and traditions that we have. Belief in the prophets, and of course, belief in the eternity of that law, ultimately that we live a life guided by the precepts of the Torah, as understood by the rabbis, and that ultimately our return to the land of Israel, which thank God in our time we have been able to return to the state of Israel, and ultimately with the fulfillment of the coming of the Messiah, the Mashiach, to a life of eternal existence. The laws and practices that help guide me through my daily life really have to do in a couple of areas as well. Obviously, we begin every day in the morning, in the late afternoon, and early evening with prayers, which structures one's life and gives one a chance to commune with God, to dialogue, as it were, with an active listener, and to center oneself throughout the day. So prayer is a very important component. And then we have certain daily laws that keep us in sync. We have the laws of our dietary laws of kashrut, of keeping kosher. We have the civil laws that guide our relationship between our man and fellow man, belief between man and fellow man. And of course, the laws between man and God, which really represent themselves on a weekly basis with the Sabbath. The Shabbat really centers not only the individual Jew, but the community of Jews that come together on the Sabbath, both for prayer, but primarily in the home for celebration, by having special meals, by studying together, by enjoying peaceful time together on the Sabbath and on the special holidays, really ground us on a daily basis and really give us that sense of connectedness to God and to each other. And then ultimately, there are the laws that guide us in our interaction with all human beings, with the world around us, with all of humanity, and the ethics of sensitivity, not only to human beings, but to everything that God created, because everything is instilled with a certain potential for holiness. And it's our role in this world to draw out the holiness out of everything that exists in the physical world. If one wants to know more about Judaism, there are a number of resources. One can start with the basic texts of the Bible, with rabbinic commentary, through the literature of Judaism. Again, the Talmud, which now is translated into English in a number of different volumes. Many, many books. One can walk into any good bookstore and find a section on Judaism, or online, and there's many, many good texts. Of course, sitting down with a rabbi or another educated Jew who can guide a person certainly would be very, very helpful in finding out more about our religion and the diversity within the religion as well.